Hey, hello. You're with Wolf Gorlick, Human Riffing on IT and IT security. Today looking at Meltdown and Spectre and Chipgate and all the other scary things, but mostly Meltdown. In case you missed it, because I missed it, tip for you kids looking to get information security: don't get a job that requires you to be in meetings all day. I was in meetings all day, and I get done, and I get on my phone, I check Twitter, and everything's going on. I think it was Get Wired who was posting like gifs of like explosions and gifs of him eating popcorn and gifs of the sky falling and gifs of us not panicking and gifs of us panicking. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, Chipgate. So the tip for you is, if you haven't seen it already, look up Meltdown and Spectre. And look at this new form of attack. This particular attack happens due to a way that OSs are optimizing their use of Intel chips. Now, chips are everywhere, right? So it's pretty broad spread. The attack has been confirmed by Mozilla to be exploitable through Firefox, by Microsoft to be exploitable through Internet Explorer, by Google through Chrome. So not only is it just about affecting every single piece of hardware we have, but it's also web enabled, which is very, 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 very bad for things like worms and drive-by attacks and everything else. So there is a little bit of concern. What is it though? Let's look at specifically Meltdown in this video. Meltdown. To talk about Meltdown, you have to look first at how a CPU and OS interact. It's a ring model. Ring 0 is the kernel. That kernel is all your sensitive information about the OS, and in particular, the kernel oftentimes also stores your secrets, right? Encryption keys, passwords, things that absolutely positively cannot get out anywhere. The kernel is ring 0, and it's highly protected. You can't access it, you can't get at it. If you try and mess with it, and most Windows computers using most techniques, the computer automatically shut down to fail safe. Ring 1 is device drivers, and device drivers can talk to the kernel and back out, of course. Also, they have privileged access, which is why so many pieces of malware and infection things go after Ring 1. Ring 2 is also system drivers and system services, and Ring 3, which is where we're familiar with, is applications. So within Ring 3, you have different slices that prevent one application from reading each other's memory, and then you have all these rings to get to the kernel. Now, way back when my hair was long and black, in the mid-90s, about 1995, 1996, we invented something called speculative execution. And what speculative execution says is, hey, when I need to get to that kernel, don't wait for me. You know I might ask for it. Just, speculate. Speculate if I need something. If I need it, just prefetch it for me. Prefetch. And so, starting in the mid-90s, chips and OS vendors, Windows, Linux, Unix, now Mac, that's awesome. If you can prefetch, you can save some of that expensive calls and therefore improve performance. There's a way to squeeze out more performance out of existing chipsets. So we turned to speculative execution, and the world was great, and everything was fast, and we were swapping in and out of Ring 0 like you wouldn't believe. And today, that little teeny tiny hack, that little teeny tiny decision that was made, 2 decades ago, accounts for about 20 to 30% of our performance. No longer a little thing, right? 20 to 30% of our performance. So what does Meltdown do? Meltdown takes advantage of that speculative execution, specifically about out of order requests. So by looking at the timing and by stacking the requests and getting very, very granular in how that request flows across the chip, they can have the application layer do prefetching and prefetch out information it shouldn't have. And again, kernel 0, most sensitive information. Passwords, encryption keys, keys to the castle. Everything you need to take over a system is in that kernel, and now we have a way to read that memory out through any application. And oh, by the way, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, that any application could also be any web browser, which means any web server, which means any infected ad network, which means. Whew. So it's kind of a big deal. Who knew? There is a patch out, of course. Windows has already issued a patch They're coordinating with AV vendors. AV vendors are ring 1 into ring 0, so therefore if there's some contention between those, it will lock the system or crash it. So Microsoft is waiting to the AV vendors to catch up before your patch can be applied. So update your AV, update your Windows, and then pause for a minute and remember that I said speculative execution now accounts for 20 to 30% of the performance increase on modern systems. So when you patch, you're going to go slow. How slow? Hardware Unboxed found out, they did a video benchmarking Windows Emergency Patch, what desktop users can expect. Shout out to Hardware Unboxed. So watch their video, and what they found was, it depends. It depends on what you're doing, right? If you're doing something highly CPU intensive, it will definitely slow it down. So I would actually expect most of the impact is not going to be on the desktop users. Most of the impact is going to be on servers, which probably is a good thing for anyone on the cloud because they can just scale out more servers. But for those of us who are running heavy iron, it's going to be a lot of performance problems and a lot of retweaking of systems, I'm sure, in the coming days. But there's a patch. That's a good thing, right? And we can apply that patch. Now, we know people don't always apply patches and things go on forever, but here's the thing. It's a bug, yes. But not all bugs are vulnerabilities. Not all vulnerabilities are exploitable, and not all exploitable vulnerabilities are cataclysmic. So the sky's not falling. We have a way to patch. There's no known exploit in the wild yet, and we do have a path forward. And it's also a really, really great example of what makes hacking awesome, which is looking beyond the metaphor, looking beyond our understanding of rings and of kernels and speculative execution, and really digging deep and exploiting those flaws and how the early designers of all this equipment we run our lives on exploit those flaws in their thinking. And that's exactly what Meltdown and Spectre did. And for that reason, it's pretty cool. What do you think? What's your mitigation plan? Hit me up, comment, social media. Cheers.